Chapter 1, Let's Divorce on Stage. A family of three was the very picture of affection. Offstage, Catherine Clark stood alone in a dark corner, a scornful smile playing on her lips. She was supposed to be the mistress of this house, the mother of today's little birthday boy, but right now, another woman was hosting her son's birthday party. Scarlett Gardner was poised and graceful, her face wreathed in smiles. Thank you all for taking the time to come and celebrate Leo's birthday. Please make yourselves at home, eat and drink to your heart's content. I hope you'll forgive me if the hospitality is lacking in any way. She carried herself as if she were the lady of the house. One of Ethan Fairmont's close friends asked curiously, "Ethan, my man, why'd you have Scarlett host Leo's party today? Aren't you afraid? You know who will come back and make a scene?" Ethan wrapped a protective arm around Scarlett's waist. She's been busy with God knows what lately. She can't even be bothered with her own son's birthday, so I had to ask Scarlett to help out. Had he stopped even saying her name now? A bitter taste filled Catherine's mouth, and a numbing ache spread through her heart. She had arranged everything for this party, squeezing in time while caring for her ailing mother. Yet Ethan had credited all her hard work to another woman. She couldn't understand why Ethan treated her this way. 8 years. For 8 long years, she had given him her heart and soul. And what had she gotten in return? In college, because of a single word from Scarlett, he had demanded she give her final design project to Scarlett. On their wedding day, he had abandoned her, leaving her to face the guests' varied stares alone, forcing her to get through a wedding ceremony without a groom. She truly loved Ethan, and she knew she owed him, so she had never held these things against him. But today, she desperately needed an answer. She stepped out of the shadows, her eyes fixed on Ethan on the stage. The others were surprised to see her. Didn't Mr. Fairmont say his wife was too busy to come? What's going on? Hush, stay out of their business. Catherine stood below the stage and spoke, drawing everyone's attention. Ethan, didn't you say you'd wait for me to get back? Her question made everyone turn to look. A flicker of annoyance crossed Ethan's eyes. His tone was icy. It's our son's birthday today. Can you please not make a scene? A scene? How was she making a scene? She had only asked a simple question, hadn't she? Scarlett gently tugged on Ethan's arm. Ethan, don't be like that. Since Catherine is back, I should probably go. Ethan held Scarlett close, his voice softening to a murmur. You don't have to leave. He turned back to Catherine, his voice turning frigid again. Weren't you busy? We don't need you here. Beside them, 5-year-old Leo Fairmont pouted. What are you doing here? You ruined the whole mood. He huffed at Catherine, then turned his face away, whining coquettishly to Scarlett, Mommy, let's go cut the cake. Scarlett covered Leo's mouth in feigned shock, an apologetic look on her face. I'm so sorry, Catherine. Leo is still young, he doesn't know any better. He's just calling me that for fun. Catherine's heart felt as if a hole had been torn in it, and an icy wind whipped through, making her shiver uncontrollably. This was the child she had nearly died giving birth to due to an amniotic fluid embolism. He had been frail since birth, and she had spent countless sleepless nights by his side. This was the son she had nurtured with such painstaking care. He never had a kind word for his own mother, yet he turned around and sweetly called Scarlett Mommy. Grief washed over her and her eyes stung. Leo Fairmont, do you even remember that I am your real mother? Leo's lips tightened. You're ugly and old, a total slob, and you're mean. I don't want you to be my mom. A triumphant glint flashed in Scarlett's eyes. She put on a show of frowning, speaking earnestly to Leo. Leo, you can't talk to your mother like that. You'll hurt her feelings. Auntie Scarlett, you're so smart and pretty and you're so nice to me. Can you be my mommy? Leo said whatever came to his mind. He blinked his big, round eyes and asked seriously, Auntie Scarlett, can you marry Daddy and be my mom? Scarlett's face grew stern. Leo, your father already has your mother. I can't marry your father and I can't be your mom. Just make them get a divorce, then it'll be fine, Leo said dismissively. He walked off the stage and over to Catherine, tilting his chin up high as he ordered her. Can you hurry up and divorce Daddy so Auntie Scarlett can be my mom? Daddy doesn't like you, and I don't like you. Grandpa and Grandma and everyone else don't like you either. Why are you still here? The old, scarred wounds in Catherine's heart were ripped wide open again, raw and bleeding, the pain making it hard to breathe. She couldn't believe her 5-year-old son despised her so much that he could say such things. She licked her lips and asked softly, What did you say? Leo repeated himself impatiently, huffing in an awful tone. Are you deaf or something? A sharp pain shot through Catherine's stomach, as if someone were chiseling at her flesh with a tiny awl. She bit her lip and looked at Ethan. He was watching everything with cold detachment, as if none of it had anything to do with him. A slow, dawning smile spread across her face. For so many years, she had dedicated her entire life to this father and son. She hadn't expected gratitude, but they had never once treated her as a wife or a mother. In their eyes, she probably wasn't even a person. The last line of defense in her heart crumbled, and she finally accepted the fact that her life had been a complete joke. Leo Fairmont, I'll ask you one last time. Do you really want me to divorce your father? Leo didn't hesitate. Yes, Catherine didn't falter. Fine. A collective gasp went through the room. A fifth birthday wasn't a major milestone, so the party wasn't a huge affair, just a gathering of close friends and family. They all knew how deeply Catherine loved Ethan. After all, on their wedding day, Ethan had ditched her to see Scarlett, and she had still managed to smile and finish the ceremony. Any other woman would have been crying and demanding an annulment after such a humiliation. They didn't believe Catherine was serious. They thought she was just having a fit of pique. Catherine, you've been married for so many years and your son is this old now. You can't get a divorce just because you're angry. That's right, we know you're just upset, but you can't say things like that. It will hurt the child. Even now, these people were still blaming her. Catherine, it's all my fault. Please don't scare the boy. Scarlett, once again, put on an act of being concerned for the child. Seeing this, Leo stomped his feet in anger again. Wicked woman, nasty piece of work, look at how you're bullying Auntie Scarlett, get out. Catherine's heart turned completely cold. All these years, Scarlett had only occasionally taken the boy out to play, carefully crafting an image of being a wonderful influence on him. No one knew that after Leo was born, Catherine had spent every night caring for him while studying tedious medical texts, exhausting herself to nurse the frail child back to health. Leo himself had no idea that the very strength he now used to scream at her came from the tireless care she had given him, but none of that mattered anymore. The Fairmont family, I truly don't want to stay here any longer. Chapter 2. She's gone. A smile of what looked like liberation spread across Catherine's face. Ethan Fairmont, I'll pack my things and leave today. I'll have the divorce papers drawn up and sent to you. Please sign them and mail them back to me as soon as possible. Ethan's face was cold. I'm warning you one last time, stop making a scene. Catherine felt a wave of exhaustion. Was it that no matter what she did, he would always see it as her throwing a tantrum? She sighed. Ethan, I'm not making a scene. I genuinely want a divorce to make way for you and the Miss Gardner that you and your son adore. Ethan snapped. What nonsense are you talking about? There's nothing between Scarlett and me. She was just here to help. Catherine waved a dismissive hand. Fine, if you say so. As she turned to leave, Scarlett rushed to grab her hand. Catherine instinctively shook her off. The next second, Scarlett flew backward like a kite with a snapped string, crashing right into the birthday cake Catherine had spent 7 or 8 hours making. The cake tumbled to the floor, cream splattering everywhere, a complete mess. Ethan helped Scarlett up, asking in a low voice, Are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital? Leo, standing nearby, was so angry his eyes turned red. He rushed over and started hitting Catherine. You pushed Auntie Scarlett, and you ruined the cake she made for me. You're a bad person. I don't want to see you get out. Scarlett shook her head weakly, leaning against Ethan. I'm fine. I just lost my footing. It had nothing to do with Catherine. Please don't blame her. He knew he was just a child and couldn't hit hard, but he used all his strength, aiming for the places where it would hurt the most. Catherine lowered her gaze to him, watching the son who saw her as an enemy punch her repeatedly in the stomach. Her stomach ached, but the twisting in her heart was even more painful. She was the one who had spent 7 or 8 hours making that cake, yet all the credit had been given to Scarlett. She wanted to laugh. Seeing the hint of a smile on her face, Leo's rage intensified. He kept muttering about how bad she was, telling her to get out. Ethan's face was dark as a thundercloud, his tone frigid. Catherine, if you have a problem, take it out on me. Why do you have to hurt innocent people? Now the cake is ruined and this birthday party can't continue. Are you satisfied? She blinked her stinging eyes, her lips pressed together, finally and utterly disappointed. Apologize, Ethan commanded coldly. Catherine didn't move. I did nothing wrong. Why should I apologize? Scarlett tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Ethan, dear, it really wasn't Catherine's fault. Besides, I brought a backup cake. The party can still go on. Please don't fight. Ethan gave her shoulder a reassuring pat, telling her not to worry. His icy gaze fell on Catherine, his voice even colder than before. I said apologize. Catherine met his eyes directly. I did nothing wrong. Catherine Clark, do you really think I wouldn't dare to do anything to you? I never thought that. In front of others, Ethan was gentle and refined, a perfect gentleman. But with her, he never had a kind expression, and she had never expected one. She said, word by word, Ethan Fairmont, I know you hate me, that the sight of me annoys you. From now on, I won't appear before you to bother you again. Then, she pushed Leo into Scarlett's arms. Leo Fairmont, from now on, you can have whoever you want as your mother. I'll just pretend I never gave birth to you. She pulled the ring off her finger and tossed it carelessly onto the floor. Clink. The sound was sharp and clear. Ethan Fairmont, this time I'm serious. Let's get a divorce. Ethan had never seen such a look in her eyes before, and a sudden unease gripped him. He called for a housekeeper. Take Mrs. Fairmont upstairs. The housekeeper bowed her head. Mrs. Fairmont, even without Ethan's order, she was going upstairs anyway. Her things were still in the room, she had to get them. She went upstairs and quickly packed everything she owned into a suitcase. It was truly laughable. She had lived in the Fairmont house since her first year of high school. Today, as she was leaving after a full 8 years, everything that was truly hers fit into a single suitcase. She took one last look at the familiar bedroom, her gaze falling on their wedding photo, which only showed her hand resting on her swollen belly. A faint smile touched her lips, half mocking, half sorrowful. It was over, everything was over. She closed her eyes, wiped away the tear that had unknowingly escaped, and picked up her suitcase to head downstairs. Ethan was holding Leo's hand, laughing and talking with Scarlett and the guests. If the housekeeper wasn't cleaning up the scattered cake on the floor, you would think nothing had happened at all. Catherine didn't want another confrontation with Ethan. She lightened her steps as she descended the stairs, carrying her suitcase toward the main entrance. They were in a part of the house far from the door, and their attention was focused on the little birthday boy, Leo. No one noticed Catherine's departure. At events like this, Ethan inevitably had to drink. By the time the party ended, he was already feeling dizzy. Scarlett called a housekeeper to help her support the swaying Ethan upstairs to rest, guiding him into the secondary bedroom where he slept. Catherine and Ethan had slept in separate rooms since their marriage. Ethan had the master bedroom, while Catherine had the adjoining one. Watching the housekeeper attend to Ethan, she instructed, "Go downstairs and make some hangover soup for Ethan, dear, so he doesn't feel terrible tomorrow morning." The housekeeper acknowledged the order. Just then, Leo suddenly appeared. He was scratching his arms and crying for Scarlett. "Auntie Scarlett, I'm so itchy, help me scratch it." Scarlett knelt, alarmed. "Leo, why do you suddenly have so many red spots on you?" "I don't know, it's so itchy, wah." Leo was crying his eyes out. The exposed skin on his body was already raw from his scratching. Any more, and it would start to bleed. Scarlett quickly pulled him to the door of the secondary bedroom and knocked. "Catherine, open up, Leo has a rash." She knocked for a long time, but there was no response from inside. She cursed under her breath in frustration. That woman Catherine was so thoughtless to throw a fit over such a small thing, and ignore her own sick son Leo was wailing at the top of his lungs, and the noise was grating on Scarlett's ears. She couldn't scold him, so she could only try to soothe him. "Leo, have you ever had a rash like this before? I get a rash when I eat strawberries." Scarlett remembered that the cake she had brought seemed to have strawberries as decoration. She frowned slightly. "If you know you're allergic to strawberries, why did you eat the piece of cake I gave you?" If something happened to him because of the cake she brought, she would be finished. Was this little idiot trying to get her killed? Leo's face was flushed, his breathing rapid, and his eyes were rolling back. Scarlett quickly told the housekeeper to call the family doctor. She went and knocked on Catherine's door again, but there was still no answer. What was Catherine thinking, ignoring her child and dumping him on her? She had no desire to stay up all night looking after a child. She tried turning the doorknob and was surprised when it opened. The room was pitch black, and she couldn't see anything. She carried Leo inside and placed him on the bed. As she fumbled for the light switch, she said, Catherine, I have to say, it's not right for you to throw a tantrum over something so small and ignore your own son's life. She flipped the switch, but when she turned around, she didn't see Catherine. Her brows furrowed tightly. She really left. Chapter 3. The most outstanding student. Scarlett muttered a curse. Damn that woman, she had no idea where that woman had run off to, leaving her with this mess. Scarlett had no intention of dealing with it. She glanced at Leo, told a housekeeper to watch him, and went to a guest room to wash up and rest. The family doctor examined Leo's symptoms, recognized it as an allergic reaction, and gave him some allergy medication. Leo burst into tears, refusing to take it. I don't want to take this medicine, it's too bitter. Where did that woman go? I want the medicine she makes for me. Leo had always been sickly, constantly suffering from major and minor ailments, and he hated taking medicine. Left with no choice, Catherine had racked her brains to turn the bitter traditional remedies into sweet little pills for him to take. The housekeeper was in a difficult position. Young master, I don't know where your mother has gone, and I don't know where she keeps her medicine. Please be a good boy and listen to the doctor. Take the medicine he prescribed, okay. If you don't take your medicine, you won't get better and you'll feel awful, the housekeeper coaxed patiently. But Leo refused. He cried and fussed and then suddenly started vomiting. The housekeeper was terrified. She hurried to the other bedroom and forcefully woke Ethan up. Sir, you have to go see the young master. He has a rash, refuses to take his medicine, and now he's throwing up. Ethan's head was pounding. Where's Catherine Clark? The child is in this state and she's not doing anything. We don't know where Mrs. Fairmont is. I have no idea what she's trying to pull, Ethan said, rubbing his temples. Forget about her for now. I'll go check on Leo. Ethan pressed a hand to his dizzy head and followed the housekeeper to the master bedroom. Leo was vomiting just as he walked in. Doctor, what's happening to him? The young master is vomiting because he's been crying so hard and he's not feeling well. Ethan touched Leo's forehead. Take the medicine first. Daddy, I don't want the doctor's medicine. I want the one that woman makes, Leo insisted, his small face frighteningly pale. Ethan's headache was severe, but he held on. Leo Fairmont, listen to me. Take the medicine. Being scolded by his father, Leo felt wronged and cried his heart out until his voice was hoarse. He threw up all over Ethan. Ethan was extremely irritated now. He forcibly pried open Leo's mouth and shoved the medicine inside. Leo immediately vomited it back out. Suppressing his rage, Ethan gritted his teeth. Call that woman's phone. Tell her to get her ass back here right now. The housekeeper replied tremblingly, I'll do it right away. When Catherine saw the call coming from the Fairmonts' landline, she glanced at it and immediately declined. They kept calling, relentless. Annoyed, Catherine finally answered, Mrs. Fairmont, something's happened to the young master. Where are you? Please come back and check on him. Catherine sighed. He's sick. What does that have to do with me? I'm not a doctor. Mrs. Fairmont, the doctor has seen him and prescribed medicine, but he refuses to take it. He insists on having the little pills you make. We just gave him the doctor's medicine, and he threw it all up. Please, Mrs. Fairmont, come back. If you don't, something bad could happen to the young master. Catherine pressed her lips together. She had made up her mind to leave the Fairmonts and divorce Ethan. She wasn't going back. You don't need to tell me about the Fairmonts' affairs anymore. Their business has nothing to do with me, an outsider. The housekeeper froze. Mrs. Fairmont, what do you mean? Ethan snatched the receiver from the housekeeper's hand just in time to hear Catherine's cold voice. Her words ignited his fury. He raised his voice. Catherine Clark, have you forgotten what kind of methods you used to become a part of this family? Catherine could never forget. It was the party the Fairmonts threw for Isabel's college acceptance. Ethan had brought the girl he loved to celebrate with his sister, and Catherine had also been invited. Isabel, in a bid to get Ethan, had drugged a drink, but Catherine had accidentally drunk it instead. And just like that, the two of them had ended up together. When they were discovered, Ethan was forced to take responsibility for her. The girl he loved had a breakdown and went abroad. Although Catherine had taken a contraceptive pill, she still became pregnant, and Ethan was forced to marry her. Catherine took a deep, heavy breath and slowly exhaled. So what are you trying to say? Ethan's tone was mocking. You went to such great lengths to marry into this family. How could you leave so easily? My patience has its limits. Stop this act, come back. Catherine couldn't be bothered to argue. "Are you finished, Mr. Fairmont? If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up." Ethan's grip on the receiver tightened and he ground his teeth. "Even a vicious tiger won't eat its own cubs. To force my hand, you're even using our son. You don't deserve to be a mother." Catherine didn't want to hear any more of it and hung up. As for what would happen to Leo, she wasn't worried at all. He was the sole heir of the Fairmont family. Nothing truly bad would be allowed to happen to him. The car reached its destination. She pulled her suitcase along, hesitating under a streetlight, not daring to approach the small villa. A red sports car pulled up beside her. A woman in a red fishtail dress stepped out. Her figure was stunning, and her curly hair swayed as she walked. You could feel her captivating charm without even seeing her face. She crossed her arms, her tone laced with sarcasm. "Well, if it isn't Mrs. Fairmont. What are you doing standing under my streetlight with a suitcase? Did you get kicked out?" Catherine lowered her head, feeling awkward. Stella Sterling frowned. "Why are you stuttering?" The Catherine I knew never spoke like this. She looked Catherine's clothes up and down with disdain. "Aren't you the esteemed Mrs. Fairmont? What on earth are you wearing?" When Catherine left, she hadn't taken a single thing the Fairmonts had bought for her. She had even changed into the same outfit she wore when she first arrived at their house in high school. The clothes were old and faded. "Stella!" In front of her best friend, Catherine couldn't hold back her emotions. "I'm completely done with Ethan Fairmont." Stella was stunned. "What did you say?" "I'm divorcing Ethan. I've moved out of their house, but I have nowhere to go. Can I stay with you for a few days?" Stella burst out laughing. "So you finally regret it. I never understood what you saw in a man like Ethan Fairmont." She grabbed Catherine's hand and led her to the car. "Take a good look at yourself. You look like a washed-up hag. You were the most outstanding student of our design academy. You had opportunities for graduate school, a PhD, even a free exchange program to study abroad. You threw away your brilliant future all by yourself." Chapter 4. Single parenting by default. Once upon a time, Stella Sterling had been Catherine's best friend. The day before Catherine's wedding, Stella had gone to the Fairmont estate specifically to talk to her, urging her to think clearly and not to ruin her future just to get married. But at the time, Catherine was headstrong, her mind filled with nothing but Ethan Fairmont. Because of that man, Catherine and Stella had a huge fight and went their separate ways. They hadn't spoken in years. To her surprise, seeing Stella again after so long, she was still the same as ever. Stella took Catherine to the city's largest central business district and gave her a complete makeover, from head to toe, even buying her new underwear. Stella called it starting over. Tired from shopping, they ordered 2 ice creams and devoured them in the shop. "Damn it!" Stella slammed her hand on the table after hearing what happened at the birthday party. "The Fairmonts, from the oldest to the youngest, are all rotten to the core. This time, you have to teach them a lesson. Don't you dare forgive them so easily." Catherine finished the last bit of her favorite strawberry ice cream and smiled at Stella. "I've already bought a ticket to Seacrest for 3 days from now." Clatter, the fork fell from Stella's hand. You're leaving the city?" Catherine shrugged, as if it were nothing. "If I'm going to cut ties, I need to do it completely." Stella was utterly stunned. She had thought Catherine was just trying to teach that bastard and his son a lesson, but she never imagined Catherine had already decided to leave the city for good. This was a massive departure from the Catherine she remembered. Meanwhile, at Capital City First Hospital, a female doctor in a white coat squeezed out of the hospital room and shot Ethan a disapproving glare. "You're a grown man. How can you lack such basic common sense? The child's allergic reaction was so severe. Why didn't you bring him to the hospital immediately? You're lucky there was a doctor on duty, or your son's life would have been in danger." Ethan looked completely lost. "An allergy. What is he allergic to?" The doctor rolled her eyes. "I should be asking you that. Are you even his father? How can you not know what he's allergic to?" The doctor's scolding left Ethan unable to even lift his head. His mind raced. He vaguely remembered Catherine mentioning something about Leo being allergic to something. But at the time, he had been annoyed by her constant nagging and had harshly shut her down. As a result, he couldn't recall what Leo was allergic to at all. Seeing him silent, the doctor huffed in frustration. "I really don't know how people like you become fathers. If you don't know, we'll just have to draw blood and run some tests." With that, the doctor turned and went back into the room. Through the door, he could hear her complaining to a colleague, "These days, any riffraff can become a father. His wife must be stuck with single parenting by default. What terrible luck to end up with a husband like that." Ethan's face paled at her words, his tongue pressing against the inside of his cheek. The comment left a sour taste in his mouth. Single parenting by default? Was it like that? Even if it was all Catherine's fault. Catherine was usually the one who handled everything related to Leo. Most of the time, Ethan couldn't be bothered to deal with Catherine, so he tuned out whatever she said, especially the little details she mentioned about Leo. It was all Catherine's fault. If she weren't so annoying, maybe he would have listened to her more, and he wouldn't be so clueless about his own son. As Ethan seethed, a slender, pale hand reached out from behind him and gently patted his shoulder. A flicker of pleasure went through him, and the corners of his mouth turned up unconsciously. He turned, but his smile vanished when he saw who it was. "What are you doing here?" Diana Payne, holding a black folder, offered a restrained smile and withdrew her hand, nodding at him. "Mr. Fairmont, is the young master all right? Miss Gardner called me and asked me to come to the hospital to help you take care of him." Scarlett knew she had messed up and didn't dare come to the hospital herself. Instead, she had called Ethan's executive assistant, Diana Payne, and sent her over. Ethan was too preoccupied to ask for details. He answered casually, "Leo had a sudden collapse due to an allergic reaction. He's receiving treatment now." Diana's eyes widened. "An allergic reaction? Did the young master eat strawberries?" Ethan froze. "You know what Leo is allergic to?" Diana quickly pulled a meticulously organized document from her folder. "Catherine gave this to me before. It lists your and the young master's daily preferences and important notes. It clearly states here that the young master is allergic to strawberries." This was the first time Ethan had ever seen such a thing. He took it and examined it. It was indeed very detailed, even specifying which tie should go with which of his suits. Catherine was an artist with a good eye for aesthetics and a unique talent for coordinating outfits. This was something she would indeed excel at. "Mr. Fairmont," Diana handed him another file. "This is your schedule for today. You have a very important meeting in 3 hours. With the young master's sudden collapse, should we postpone it?" Ethan snapped back to the present. Instead of returning the list of notes to Diana, he stuffed it into his own bag. He glanced toward the hospital room. "This meeting is crucial. It can't be postponed. I'll wait here. You go find Catherine Clark. Tell her I have a meeting, so she should stop this nonsense and come back immediately." Diana looked troubled. "But I don't know where Miss Clark is." Ethan rubbed his brow, clicking his tongue in annoyance. "Catherine has no family in the city. Besides the Fairmont estate, her only friend is Stella Sterling. If she's going to play this game of running away from home, she has nowhere else to go." Diana agreed and hurried away. Ethan's gaze fell on the file in his bag. He sniffed and let out a disdainful snort. Wasting her time on this kind of useless trivia instead of focusing on what's important. With that, he zipped up the bag forcefully and tossed it onto the nearby bench, as if that could release some of his pent-up anger. As Diana walked to the parking lot, she sent a text to an unsaved number. "Catherine's gone. Should I find her?" A moment later, a reply came back. "Find her." Diana drove to Stella's house. Before she even reached the villa, she saw 2 people sitting in the garden. Stella was sitting facing the villa's main gate. Across from her sat a woman in a white dress that beautifully accentuated her graceful figure. A cascade of long hair was casually tucked behind her ears, revealing a slender, fair neck. Even from a distance, it was clear the woman was poised and elegant, undoubtedly a natural beauty. Diana waved at Stella through the villa gate. "Miss Sterling, sorry to interrupt your visit. Is Catherine Clark here by any chance?" Chapter 5. I find it filthy. The woman sitting with her back to the gate stiffened slightly and slowly turned her head. The moment her clear eyes met Diana's, a shiver ran down Diana's spine. She snatched her hand back from the iron gate as if it were scalding hot. It was Catherine Clark. She was wearing light makeup. Her skin was flawless, her lips red, and a faint, enigmatic smile played on her lips. There was an air of quiet, commanding pride about her. This was a world away from the woman who was like a servant at the Fairmont estate, constantly washing and cooking. The difference was so vast that Diana could hardly recognize her. Diana was Ethan's executive assistant, the kind who handled both his professional and personal affairs. Over the years, hoping to learn more about Ethan through her, Catherine had been incredibly deferential to Diana, showering her with countless favors. Not only had this failed to earn her a single smile, but it had made Diana even more arrogant and condescending in Catherine's presence. Now, Catherine was done putting up with it. Catherine crossed her arms and leaned against the gate. "Can I help you?" Every move she made was filled with a captivating grace, a stark contrast to the timid woman who was afraid of sneezing too loudly. The sheer force of her presence immediately put Diana on the back foot. Diana took a moment to recover, then raised her voice in her usual manner. "Catherine Clark, are you insane? Do you have any idea that the young master is in the hospital because of an allergic reaction? Instead of going back to take care of him, you have the nerve to dress up and prance around out here." With that, Diana grabbed Catherine's arm and tried to drag her away. She pulled twice, but the woman behind her didn't budge. Diana turned, confused. Catherine's face was calm. She lowered her gaze to Diana's hand on her arm, her red lips parting as she spoke slowly and deliberately. "Get your paws off me." Diana was stunned, unable to believe her ears. What did you say?" Fingers painted with crimson nail polish seized Diana's wrist and slowly pushed her hand away. Catherine's calm eyes met Diana's. "I didn't give Leo Fairmont anything to eat. His allergic reaction is not my fault. Besides, he's sick. He needs a doctor, not me. And so do you." With that, Catherine turned to close the gate. Diana wedged half her body in the doorway, her face contorted with effort. She pointed an accusing finger at Catherine, the nail almost touching her face. "Catherine Clark, the young master is just a child. How can you be so heartless as to ignore your own son?" Catherine's pressure on the iron gate didn't lessen. The gap narrowed, nearly squeezing Diana out. "Leo Fairmont said it himself. He doesn't want me as his mother. He's someone else's son now, and it has nothing to do with me. If you want to throw a fit, you should go find his mother." With a gentle push, Catherine sent Diana stumbling backward. By the time she regained her balance, the villa's iron gate was shut. Diana rattled the gate, screaming, "Catherine Clark, stop the act. If you really wanted to cause a scene, you could have just left for good. Why hide out at Miss Sterling's place? Isn't it because you were betting that Mr. Fairmont would send someone to find you here? Mr. Fairmont is being generous and not holding this against you. He even sent me personally to pick you up. Don't be such a shameless hypocrite. Stop playing hard to get, pack your things, and come back with me." Seeing Catherine pause, Diana was even more certain she had won. She let out a breath, released the gate, and stood with her arms crossed like a queen, waiting for Catherine to obediently follow her. The iron gate did indeed open. Catherine stepped out, her head held high, a proud curve to her lips. "You're right, I am a shameless hypocrite," Diana sneered. "I want to be the good guy, but I also want to be completely done with the Fairmonts. I suppose I can't have it both ways." Diana sensed a hidden meaning in her words and raised an eyebrow. A crisp slap cut off whatever Diana was about to say. Her head snapped to the side, her cheek burning, her lip numb, and a ringing in her ear. Catherine massaged her wrist and stared coldly at Diana. "Since I can't be the good guy, I might as well make things crystal clear. Remember this slap. Go back and tell Ethan Fairmont in no uncertain terms that from now on, I have nothing to do with his family. Don't harass me with their problems anymore, and especially don't send any more riff-raff my way." Catherine lifted Diana's chin, looking down at her imperiously. "I find it filthy," she said softly. She let go, and Diana stumbled back from the momentum, collapsing to the ground. Bang, the iron gate slammed shut. This time, Catherine didn't look back, striding confidently to the table in the courtyard and taking a seat. Stella was dumbfounded, her face full of admiration. "Kate, that was amazing." This was the Catherine she knew outside the gate. It took Diana a moment to process what had happened. She scrambled to her feet and fled in humiliation. Even by the time she got back to the hospital, she couldn't figure out how Catherine had changed so drastically in less than a day. Back at the hospital, a blood test was done on Leo. Although he hadn't woken up yet, his condition had stabilized. Ethan sat by his bedside, taking care of him while handling work. Diana burst in, her face half swollen, and before she could even steady herself, tears started streaming down her face. "Mr. Fairmont, Catherine Clark not only refuses to come back, but she also said horrible things. She said she finds you and the young master filthy, and that we shouldn't bother her with the family's affairs anymore." Ethan's face flushed with anger. He slammed his laptop shut, the veins on the back of his hand bulging as he struggled to control his rage. "Is that really what she said?" Diana nodded pitifully. "Yes, and when I argued with her, she hit me." As she spoke, she turned her face toward Ethan. "Look, this is where she hit me." That woman had gone too far. Ethan's hands trembled with rage. Hitting someone was one thing, but how dare she call him and Leo filthy? Had she forgotten what methods she used to climb into his bed in the first place? It seemed he needed to teach her a lesson. Ethan took out his phone. Just as he was about to dial, it rang. It was Catherine. Well. She still had the nerve to call him. Ethan, simmering with rage, answered the phone, ready to unleash his fury, but her voice cut in first. Diana Payne's face. "I hit her." She admitted it so readily. Catherine didn't give Ethan a chance to speak, continuing in a rapid-fire burst. "Mr. Fairmont, if you can't control the foul-mouthed riff-raff around you, and she ever dares to say something like, 'playing hard to get' to my face again, it won't be as simple as just a slap." Goodbye. It was short and to the point. By the time Ethan processed it, the call was already over. When he tried to call back, all he got was a busy signal. The woman had blocked him. Ethan's face was ashen, his hand squeezing the phone so hard it looked like it might shatter. Diana cautiously approached. "Mr. Fairmont, are you all right?" Slap. Another loud slap echoed through the room. Chapter 6. Getting hit. The other half of Diana's face turned red. This slap was even harder than the one Catherine had delivered. "Catherine Clark is the rightful Mrs. Fairmont, Leo Fairmont's biological mother," Ethan said, his face dark, his jaw clenched, his eyes filled with a somber light. "How dare you say something like playing hard to get to her?" Diana hung her head, mumbling under her breath. "I was just trying to persuade her to come back quickly." "Persuade?" Ethan's anger flared. "Is that how you persuade someone? Diana, is this how you treat other employees at the company?" Diana immediately shook her head. "Of course not. Mr. Fairmont, you've always said we should treat employees like family. How could I say something like that to them?" "So you're well aware of what should and shouldn't be said. This means you were deliberately targeting Catherine, saving those words just for her." Diana was at a loss for words, with no way to explain. Ethan snorted. "Starting tomorrow, you'll be transferred to a junior position. You can come back when you've learned how to speak to people." "Mr. Fairmont, cough, a low cough interrupted Diana. On the bed, Leo's young brow furrowed and his small body curled up. "Catherine Clark, I want some water. Bring me some water." His eyes weren't even open, yet he was already ordering Catherine around. When no water came, Leo's voice rose in annoyance. "Catherine Clark, are you deaf? I said I want water." Listening to Leo's demanding tone, a strange feeling stirred in Ethan's heart. Was this how Leo normally spoke to Catherine? He was far more polite to the housekeepers than he was to her. Leo's eyes remained closed as he blindly swatted his hand through the air. Crash! He knocked over the water glass beside him, the sound startling him into finally opening his eyes. The sterile white walls and the smell of disinfectant in the air slowly brought Leo to his senses. He looked around, then glanced tentatively at Ethan, his voice dropping to its usual soft, sweet tone. "Daddy, where am I?" Ethan's expression was grim, his eyes narrowed as he asked coldly, "Leo Fairmont, is that how you usually address her at home?" Leo was stunned for a few seconds before he realized who her was. He didn't think he'd done anything wrong. In fact, he lifted his chin with an air of arrogance. "What other way is there? Daddy, you don't really expect me to call her Mom, do you? She's so shabby, a total country bumpkin. Calling her Mom would just bring shame to our family, wouldn't it?" Leo looked down, talking to himself, completely oblivious to how terrifyingly dark Ethan's expression had become. Besides, asking her to get me water is doing her a favor. She's happy to do it. "Shut up!" Ethan's sharp voice made Leo flinch. He turned his head, looking over with fear in his eyes. Ethan's gaze was frighteningly cold. He pointed a stern finger at Leo. "If I ever hear you speak like that again, I won't be so lenient." In his entire life, Ethan had never raised his voice at Leo, let alone been so fierce. Leo felt both wronged and angry. He stuck his neck out and retorted, "I'm not wrong, she's not a real Fairmont. Someone like her isn't even worthy of polishing our shoes." Ethan never imagined that his normally well-behaved and sensible son would say such things about Catherine. While he didn't like the woman either, no matter what, Leo was the son Catherine had risked her life to bring into the world. Anyone else could say what they wanted about her, but not him. Ethan couldn't accept that he had such an ungrateful, ill-mannered son. His anger boiled over, a vein throbbing at his temple. He stopped arguing, grabbed Leo's arm, flipped him over, and delivered 2 hard slaps to his backside. The slaps made Leo wail and left Ethan's own palm stinging. "Mr. Fairmont," Diana rushed over, trying to pull him away. "The young master is just a child, he doesn't know what he's saying. You don't have to actually hit him." The more she said, the louder Leo cried. The louder he cried, the harder Ethan hit. For a moment, the room was filled with the sound of slaps and cries. After what felt like an eternity, Leo finally gave in. "Daddy, I was wrong, stop hitting me." The moment Ethan stopped, Leo went limp like a noodle, sliding off the bed and onto the floor. His eyes were red and swollen from crying as he looked up pitifully at Ethan. Ethan felt no sympathy. He pointed a cold finger at Leo. "Now I finally understand why she left. You will go and coax her back yourself. If you can't, then you don't have to come back either." With that, Ethan grabbed his computer and stormed out. How had he never noticed before? Leo was so ungrateful, so bossy toward his own mother. If this wasn't corrected now, what would he become when he grew up? Bang! The door slammed with a thunderous noise, making both Diana and Leo in the room jump. After a long silence, Diana carefully helped Leo up. "Young master, the floor is cold. You should get up." Leo bit his lip, his gaze dark as he stared straight ahead. "Where is she?" It took Diana a few seconds to react. "At Stella Sterling's house." Leo scrambled up from the floor, haphazardly dusting off his bottom. "Take me there," he said coldly. Diana's face showed reluctance, but inwardly she was ecstatic. Catherine dared to act high and mighty in front of her. She didn't believe for a second that Catherine would dare to be so imperious in front of Leo. She would probably be on her knees, begging for forgiveness in no time. Half an hour later, outside the villa. Stella was in the garden with the gardener, learning how to care for the flowers, when she saw Leo jump out of the car, looking furious. She quickly instructed the housekeeper behind her, "Go and inform Miss Clark. Tell her," the words not to come out, were still on her lips when Leo started kicking the iron gate violently, screaming at the top of his lungs. "Catherine Clark, you get the hell out here." His face was flushed, the veins on his forehead popping. Anyone who saw him would think he was yelling at his mortal enemy, not his own mother. If Leo dared to treat Catherine this way in public, Stella couldn't imagine how the little demon tormented her in private. The thought of the life Catherine had been living with the Fairmonts made Stella's blood boil. She dropped her shears, strode forward, and pointed at Leo, scolding, "Hey, kid, whose child are you? Who gave you permission to cause a ruckus outside my house?" Diana was about to explain when Leo cut her off, sticking his neck out and yelling at Stella, "You're the one who took in Catherine Clark, aren't you? Tell her to get out here and come back with me right now, or else you'll regret it." He wasn't big, but his threats certainly were. Stella yanked open the gate and rolled up her sleeves, reaching to grab Leo's ear. But the little rascal was surprisingly quick. He dodged her and stomped down hard on her foot. He ground his heel back and forth, his teeth clenched. The pain made Stella's face turn pale, and a cold sweat broke out on her forehead. "Get Catherine Clark out here, or I'll burn this place down with you in it." Chapter 7. So what if he's my own child? Leo lifted his chin even higher, glaring triumphantly at Stella, Leo Fairmont. Catherine had heard the commotion and came out to see this exact scene. Seeing Leo bullying Stella, Catherine rushed to the gate, grabbed Leo's arm, and raised her hand. Slap! The blow sent Leo spinning. He staggered back a few steps, clutching his face and staring at Catherine in disbelief. "Stella, are you okay?" Catherine acted as if she couldn't even see Leo, fussing over Stella with concern. Usually, her eyes were only for him. She only ever cared about him. But now, not only had she hit him, but she also showed no concern for him whatsoever. Leo couldn't take it. He put his hands on his hips, puffed out his chest, and kicked at Catherine's shin. Before his leg could connect, his ankle was caught in a firm grip. The next second, Catherine lifted her hand slightly, and Leo lost his balance, falling to the ground with a thud. Leo's bottom was already sore from Ethan's spanking. This hard fall on top of it made his eyes instantly well up with tears. He sat on the ground and threw a tantrum. "Catherine Clark, are you crazy? Who do you think you are to treat me like this? Do you even want to come back to the Fairmont family anymore?" After making sure Stella was all right, Catherine turned to look at Leo. For years, she had gotten used to yielding to his every whim. No matter what he said, what he did, or how he treated her, she had always endured it, simply because he was her own flesh and blood. But the child she had carried for 10 months wanted to call another woman, Mommy, right in front of her. If that was the case, why should she put up with it any longer? Catherine's expression was indifferent, as if she were a mere bystander. A cold arc formed on her lips. "Are you done crying?" Her voice was so calm, it was as if she didn't know Leo at all. "When you're done, apologize to my friend." Leo was completely shocked, so shocked he forgot to cry. He just blinked, pointing at Stella with a look of utter disbelief. "Catherine Clark, what did you say? You want me to apologize to her? You're taking her side against me. Are you even my mom?" "No," Catherine replied, her red lips parting, her answer delivered without a hint of hesitation. "Apologize to my friend, now." Whoosh! Leo sprang to his feet as if he had springs in his shoes. His eyes were wide with disbelief as he stared at Catherine. He couldn't believe his ears. She said no. She actually said she wasn't his mom. How was that possible? Catherine's greatest source of pride had always been having a son like him. She couldn't wait to tell everyone she met that Leo Fairmont was her son. It had embarrassed him more than a few times. But now she had said the word no so casually. Leo's young heart was dealt a massive blow. A sour, tight feeling gripped his chest as if it were being squeezed. He rubbed his stinging nose, fought back tears, and glared stubbornly at Catherine. "Since you said you're not my mom, why should I listen to you?" Catherine wasn't angry. She took a step forward. "I'm asking you one last time. Are you going to apologize or not?" "No." Catherine calmly took out her phone and found Ethan's number. "Fine. Then I'll let your father deal with his own son." With that, she dialed his number. Ethan had just spanked him for being disrespectful. If Ethan found out what had just happened, he would surely get another beating. Thinking of Ethan's slaps, Leo felt a phantom pain in his backside. Seeing the call connect, Leo was both panicked and furious. He lunged forward, hung up the phone, and glared at Catherine with reddened eyes. "Fine, I'll do it," he gritted his teeth, shot Catherine a venomous look, and reluctantly turned to Stella. "Sorry." His voice was as quiet as a mosquito's buzz. "Young Master Fairmont," Catherine said, her tone level, as if speaking about a complete stranger. "Is the Fairmont family's upbringing this poor? You don't even know the proper way to apologize." Leo whipped his head around to glare at her. She slowly raised her phone, the screen still on Ethan's contact information. All she had to do was press her thumb down, and the call would go through. The memory of the spanking was still fresh. Leo didn't dare to argue. He executed a perfect 90-degree bow and deliberately raised his voice. "Miss Sterling, I'm sorry." His apology was so sincere that even Stella found it hard to listen to. She waved her hand. "It's fine, you can get up." Leo straightened up and stared at Catherine with resentment, grinding his teeth. "Are you satisfied now?" Catherine paid him no mind, linking arms with Stella and turning to walk back into the villa. He was being ignored again, treated like he was invisible. Leo was infuriated and screamed at the top of his lungs. "Catherine Clark, I dare you to never come back to the Fairmont house for the rest of your life." His words were like a punch thrown at cotton. Catherine didn't reply. She didn't even glance back at him. After that, no matter what harsh words Leo shouted, he was met with only silence. Finally, Leo's voice gave out. Only then did Diana cautiously approach him. "Young master, maybe we should go back for now and rethink our strategy." She hadn't expected that Catherine, when pushed, could be so utterly ruthless, not even giving the young master any face. This was great. Not only had they failed to persuade Catherine to return, but they had also offended Stella Sterling. If Ethan found out about this, he wouldn't blame Leo. He would blame her, his executive assistant, for not only failing to stop Leo's antics, but also for participating in them. If that happened, her punishment would likely be far worse than just a temporary demotion. Diana's mood was abysmal, and Leo's was no better. When they got into the car, their faces were equally grim. On the second floor of the villa, Stella watched the two of them get into the car with sullen faces and laughed so hard she almost spilled her coffee. "Catherine Clark, you're something else." She called out to Catherine, who was in the room packing. I thought you'd go soft and forgive that little brat. You really impressed me this time. Catherine kept her head down, focused on her suitcase. I went soft for so many years. What did it get me? I should have understood long ago. Even if he's my own child, I can't let him hurt me however he pleases. Stella felt like giving her a round of applause. She walked into the room, beaming, and knelt across from Catherine. Catherine, if you had been like this from the start, you wouldn't have had to put up with so much crap all these years. With that, Stella took out a business card and handed it to Catherine. Since you've decided to start over, it's time you had this. Seeing the familiar name on the card, Catherine's heart sank and her nose began to sting. Chapter 8. She won inside the villa. It was only 3 in the afternoon, but Ethan Fairmont was unexpectedly home. The housekeeper had never seen him return so early and hurried to greet him. Mr. Fairmont, why are you home so early today? Ethan's eyes were slightly downcast, with dark circles underneath them and a faint stubble on his chin. The corner of his white shirt peeked out from under his suit jacket, wrinkled and even smudged with white wall dust from somewhere. He rubbed his throbbing temples. I have a conference call with the U.S. team tonight. Go get my clothes. With that, he sank onto the leather sofa and closed his eyes to rest. He had been at the hospital with Leo all night and was exhausted. He had no idea how Catherine usually managed to look after the boy. After a long moment, the housekeeper's tentative voice came from his side. Mr. Fairmont, which outfit do you need? Ethan was already irritable, and such a clueless question only made it worse. Without opening his eyes, he said curtly, "Where's Catherine Clark? Tell her." He stopped mid-sentence. How could he have forgotten? Catherine was throwing a tantrum. She wasn't even home. Ethan took a deep breath and forced himself to look at the housekeeper. Just get the suit I usually wear for conference calls. The housekeeper looked flustered, standing frozen, wringing her hands. Mr. Fairmont, your wife usually handles and coordinates all your outfits personally. Each suit is for a different occasion. I don't know which one you should wear for a meeting with the U.S. team. That was right. Whether he was going to the office, attending various functions, or even having meetings with subsidiaries from different regions, Catherine would always find the right outfit for him. Each one was unique, and many business partners had praised his impeccable style. He just never realized Catherine did all of it herself. It seemed that without this woman, he was truly at a loss. Fine, it was just an outfit. What difference did it make which one he wore? Did he really think he couldn't survive without her? How ridiculous. Ethan didn't say any more to the housekeeper and got up, intending to go upstairs and choose one himself. He refused to believe that without Catherine, he couldn't even find a single suit. This is infuriating. Before Ethan could reach the stairs, the villa door was kicked open with tremendous force. Leo's voice arrived before he did. Catherine Clark must be insane. Leo rubbed his sore bottom, his little face still etched with anger. How dare she make me apologize? She can stay away for the rest of her life for all I care. I have Auntie Scarlett to be my mom anyway. I don't need that crazy woman. He hadn't finished his tirade when he sensed a dark gaze on him. He looked over cautiously and met Ethan's grim stare. The intensity of it made his skin crawl. Leo swallowed hard, forcing a smile. Daddy, what are you doing home? Ethan was never home at this time, which was why Leo had been complaining about Catherine so freely. But now, Ethan had heard every word. His voice was cold as he demanded, "Where is Catherine Clark?" The mere mention of that woman made Leo's anger flare up again. She refused to come back. Ethan's heart sank slightly, and the hand behind his back clenched unconsciously. She wouldn't even come back for Leo. Could it be that this time she was determined to see this through, that she wouldn't come back unless he went to get her himself? Seeing how awful Ethan's expression was, Leo didn't dare linger. His bottom was still throbbing. He quickly made an excuse and went upstairs. Diana Payne, who had followed him in, wasn't so lucky. Ethan shot her a cold glance. What happened? Diana had no choice but to recount the events at Stella's house, adding her own embellishments. After she finished, she saw Ethan's face was dark and silent. She mustered the courage to add, "Mr. Fairmont, Catherine Clark has really gone too far this time. Stella Sterling is an outsider after all. How could she treat the young master like that for an outsider's sake? And making him apologize to Stella, my heart ached just watching it. For Catherine to side with an outsider like that, she's completely unworthy of being the young master's mother." A gaze as sharp as a knife suddenly fell on Diana. It felt so real that a shiver ran down her spine, and her lips twitched uncontrollably. Remembering Ethan's earlier warning, Diana swallowed the rest of her words and quickly bowed an apology. "Mr. Fairmont, I misspoke." Ethan snorted, his voice terrifyingly deep. "Report to the junior division tomorrow." With that, he ignored Diana's look of despair, turned, and went straight upstairs. Diana was just his executive assistant, basically an errand runner who managed his daily schedule, yet she dared to refer to Catherine by her full name. How did everyone else in this house usually treat her? Could it be that she had truly suffered a great deal of injustice, which was why she was making such a fuss this time, even running away from home, playing hard to get to make him come and get her? "Do you people even know what you're doing?" From the end of the hallway, Leo's earth-shattering screams came from his room. "I don't like this body wash, get me the lemon-scented one. Young master, we don't know where the lemon-scented one is." You don't know anything, what good are you? "Where's my airplane? Where did you put my airplane?" "What airplane? Young master, is it this one?" Crash! Something flew out of Leo's room, accompanied by his roar. "Are you an idiot?" "I meant the airplane I play with in the bath, not that one." The chaotic sounds from the room gave Ethan a headache. Without Catherine, not only his life, but Leo's as well, had become a complete mess. If Catherine had staged this whole drama just to show Ethan this scene, he had to admit she had won. He finally saw what this home was like without her. After some thought, Ethan dialed the Sterling's number. Stella had been upstairs helping Catherine pack when she suddenly got a call. Her brother told her to come to the old Sterling estate immediately, specifically instructing her to bring her housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, with her. Unsure what crazy idea her brother had this time, Stella apologized to Catherine, promising they would get drunk together that night when she returned. Then she and Mrs. Gable left in a hurry. Catherine was left alone in the huge villa. As she packed her luggage, she realized she had left the Fairmonts in such a rush that she had only grabbed some clothes, leaving behind many daily necessities. It seemed she would have to spend a lot of money on new things after leaving the city. Her already tight financial situation was about to get worse. Ding-dong, the doorbell interrupted Catherine's thoughts. It must be Stella, having forgotten something. She jogged down the stairs. As she opened the door to tease her friend, she saw who was outside and immediately tried to slam it shut. Thud Chapter 9. I'm not worthy of an apology from the young master of the Fairmont family. A large hand blocked the door, the pale knuckles pressed right in front of Catherine's eyes. The scent of tobacco wafted toward her. Ethan didn't like the smell of smoke and rarely smoked outside of social obligations. His clothes would never carry such a strong scent. Perhaps now that she was gone, he could finally indulge himself with Scarlett Gardner without restraint. Catherine sneered inwardly. "Mr. Fairmont, without permission, this is called breaking and entering." "Catherine Clark, are you done with this charade?" Ethan pushed the door open, standing before her. He looked down at her, his eyes condescending. "If you are, then come home with me." Look at him, as confident as ever. He probably thought all he had to do was crook his finger, and she should be grateful enough to come running back to him. Catherine scoffed. "Mr. Fairmont, you have a terrible memory. Let me repeat myself. From that day on, we have no relationship. You and I do not have a home together." With that, she turned and walked away without a second glance. No home? Those two words were like a sharp knife stabbing into Ethan's heart, a dull, unsettling pain. Coupled with Catherine's dismissive smile, it ignited a fire of nameless anger within him. Suddenly, he strode forward, grabbed her wrist, and blocked her path. "Catherine Clark, you wouldn't want Stella Sterling to be targeted by her family for taking you in, would you?" No wonder Stella had been called away so abruptly. It was Ethan's doing, although Stella's last name was Sterling. Due to some old family issues, her position within the family was awkward. Everything she had today, she had built herself, but the Sterlings wanted to seize all the fruits of her labor. Catherine's expression instantly darkened, her brows furrowed as she glared at Ethan. As long as he could still get a reaction out of her, that was all that mattered. Ethan didn't care if she was happy or resentful. He sneered, "Either you come back with me now and solve this, or I help the Sterlings get what they want. The choice is yours." Brimming with confidence, Ethan stepped aside, no longer blocking her way. He stood with his arms crossed, a cold, playful smile on his lips as he watched her. They stared at each other for a few seconds before Catherine's lips parted, each word forced through gritted teeth. "You're shameless," Ethan's eyebrow arched in contempt. "I'm still a far cry from you." Knowing he was about to bring up the night she had climbed into his bed, Catherine's temples throbbed with anger, her hands hidden in her sleeves clenching into tight fists. Stella had fought against her family for so many years and had finally made some progress. How could she watch all that effort turn to ash because of her? Besides, she still had many necessities she hadn't packed. It was a good chance to go back and get them. With that thought, Catherine shot Ethan a venomous look and stomped up the stairs. A flicker of triumph lit up in Ethan's heart. A smile he didn't even notice himself spread across his face as he called out, "You only have 20 minutes." Catherine didn't reply, her steps only growing heavier, the staircase groaning under her feet. Ethan touched his earlobe. This woman's temper was getting worse and worse. He would have to have a serious talk with her when they got back. Being the lady of the Fairmont house, she couldn't have such a temper. Catherine left a note for Stella and came downstairs with her suitcase. Seeing her struggling, Ethan reached out to help, but she sidestepped him. Catherine's luggage wasn't heavy, but the suitcase was quite large. When she dodged him, the front two wheels of the suitcase lifted off the ground, causing it to tilt. The back wheels rolled right over her foot. Catherine cried out in pain and instinctively tried to pull her foot away, but she slipped. Her body tilted backward, and it looked like both she and the suitcase were about to tumble down the stairs. Catherine squeezed her eyes shut, letting out a cry. The next second, a warm arm wrapped around her waist. The pain she expected never came. She opened her eyes. Ethan was leaning over her, his dark pupils close to hers. His brow was furrowed, his tongue pressing against the inside of his cheek, a hint of pain in his eyes. Their eyes met, and a flicker of surprise crossed Catherine's watery gaze. Why would he help her? Shouldn't he have just stood there and watched her fall, then mocked her? Didn't the Fairmont men love to see her make a fool of herself? Crash! The suitcase tumbled down the stairs, the loud noise pulling Catherine back to reality. She trembled and instinctively pushed Ethan away. She hastily smoothed her hair, ran down the stairs, and knelt to gather her scattered belongings. Ethan's foot was throbbing. He stomped it a few times, held onto the railing, and descended slowly, trying his best not to show any sign of injury. By the time he reached the bottom, Catherine had already repacked her suitcase. Without a word, Ethan picked it up and started walking out. "You don't have to." Catherine chased after him, trying to grab it, but he easily dodged her. "This suitcase is mine." Catherine took a closer look at the suitcase and then remembered, of course. The suitcase was indeed Ethan's. She thought it might have been a birthday gift for him. In her rush to leave the Fairmont house, she hadn't even noticed she had grabbed his suitcase. No wonder he had been in such a hurry just now. He was probably trying to save his suitcase, but he was a step too slow and ended up saving her by mistake. Once Catherine figured this out, a self-deprecating smile touched her lips. It was to protect the suitcase, not her. What was she even thinking? Hadn't the cold shoulders and heartache she had endured at the Fairmont house all these years been enough? Was she going to keep lying to herself? "What are you standing there for?" While Catherine was lost in thought, Ethan had already put the suitcase in the car. He stood by the door and snapped, "Get in." Catherine took a deep breath, looked up at the bright sun, and silently reminded herself, "Catherine, no one in the Fairmont family cares about you. Stop being so delusional." The car ride was silent. Back at the Fairmont estate, Catherine had just dragged her suitcase into the villa when Leo rushed out from the living room. Seeing her, he leaned against the entryway, his tone dripping with scorn. "Catherine Clark, I thought you actually had some backbone. I didn't think you'd ever come back." Catherine didn't say a word, pulling her suitcase and heading upstairs without looking back. Getting no response, Leo stomped his foot in frustration and shouted after her, "Catherine Clark, are you deaf? I'm talking to you, is your lack of manners, because you had no one to teach you when you were growing up." Despite all the mental preparation Catherine had done, hearing those words from her own son still made her stop in her tracks. Her grip on the suitcase handle tightened, her nails digging into her palm, but she felt no pain. The two of them stood frozen, one on the stairs, one below. Ethan heard Leo's words from the doorway. He strode in, placed a hand on Leo's shoulder, and said coldly, "Leo Fairmont, apologize." Leo stubbornly lifted his chin. "She ignored me first. Why should I apologize?" Leo Fairmont, I told you to, don't bother. Before Ethan could finish, Catherine's detached voice floated down from the stairs. An apology from the young master of the Fairmont family? I'm not worthy of it. Chapter 10. Mr. Fairmont, something's happened. Catherine looked down from her position on the stairs, her expression neutral, her calm eyes betraying no emotion. She stared at Leo and said, word by word, Leo Fairmont, my parents passed away when I was young, so I had no one to teach me. You, on the other hand, will have plenty of mothers and plenty of people to teach you. Plenty of mothers? What did that mean? Both Leo and Ethan were stunned. Under their shocked and bewildered gazes, Catherine turned and walked away without looking back. She held her head high, each step firm and resolute, like a proud peacock marching off, never to return. Back in her room, however, Catherine could no longer hold it together. The hand gripping the suitcase was red and clammy with cold sweat. Leo's words echoed in her ears. The flesh of her flesh had become the dagger that stabbed her most deeply. How ironic, how utterly laughable. Although she had resolved not to be hurt by anyone in the Fairmont family again, Catherine couldn't stop her eyes from turning red. Knock, knock, a knock came from the door. Through it, Ethan's muffled voice sounded. Catherine Clark, may I come in? Catherine tilted her head back, wiped away her tears, and pulled the door open, her face a cold mask. Can I help you, Mr. Fairmont? The corners of her eyes were clearly red, her face full of hurt, yet she spoke with such icy indifference, as if the whole world owed her something. The sight of it irritated Ethan. He didn't answer, but brushed past her and sat down on the sofa in her room. Leo is just a child. What you said to him just now will hurt his feelings. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Leo would be hurt, but she wouldn't. Catherine didn't back down, retorting sarcastically, was I wrong? He wants Scarlett Gardner to be his mother now, and there will be others in the future. Isn't there another Miss Gardner waiting for Mr. Fairmont abroad? Whoosh, Ethan's dark gaze shot to Catherine's face. Catherine Clark, do you know what you're saying? Their eyes met. Catherine fell silent, but there was no hint of remorse in her expression. She wasn't wrong. To be precise, she knew very well who Ethan truly cared about. After a few seconds of stalemate, it was Ethan who looked away first, changing the subject. If this is about Scarlett, you don't have to make such a scene. I only see her as a sister. Catherine gave a bitter smile and nodded slightly. I know, it was never about Scarlett. Ethan was slightly taken aback. If you know, then why are you making such a fuss? Catherine lowered her eyes, her teeth pressing against her tongue as countless thoughts swirled in her mind. When she finally looked up, her eyes were clear and cold, utterly calm. Ethan Fairmont, I no longer care what you think of Scarlett Gardner. Right now, I just want to leave the Fairmont family, leave Leo Fairmont, and leave you. Her red lips opened and closed. She said a lot, but Ethan only heard 3 words, leave you. Ethan was seething. She had caused all this trouble just to make him come and get her, to prove that she was still the mistress of this house, right? He had gone to get her. He had made Leo apologize. He had given her plenty of face. What more did she want? There had to be a limit to her theatrics. I've already booked a flight out of the city for tomorrow. Catherine's voice became clear again. I hope you can sign the papers as soon as possible. From then on, we will have nothing to do with each other. Whoosh, Ethan shot to his feet. His ears were flushed with anger, the hands at his sides clenched into fists, and a vein throbbed at his temple. She had already booked the flight. Ethan had a strange feeling. Maybe this time, Catherine wasn't just playing hard to get. Maybe she really wanted to leave. A heavy feeling settled in his chest. Ethan took a deep breath, his eyes downcast to avoid her gaze, and asked in a low voice, "Where are you going after you leave?" She hadn't expected him to ask that. Catherine was slightly surprised. Maybe to Seacrest, maybe to Port City. In any case, I won't be staying here. Seacrest. Ethan keenly picked up on the key part of her sentence. Why Seacrest? Was it because of that man? Ethan narrowed his eyes, casting a cold glance at Catherine. No wonder she had been so uncharacteristically firm this time. She had already found her next move. After a moment of silence, Ethan said coldly, "Fine, since you've already made your choice, I won't keep you." Catherine hadn't expected him to say that. For a moment, she was stunned, looking at him in disbelief. He glanced up at the clock on the wall. I have a meeting tonight. Since you're set on leaving, you should at least leave Leo with some good memories. I'll pick you and Leo up at 8 tomorrow morning. The 3 of us will spend the day together, and I'll take you to the airport in the evening. Catherine was completely floored. She stared at him, bewildered, trying to figure out what he was up to. For years, she had suggested countless times that they go out as a family, but he had always brushed her off with one excuse or another. She never imagined that on the eve of her departure, he would make such a request. Oh, well. It was the last day. It wouldn't hurt to part on good terms. Catherine didn't object, lowering her head and nodding gently. Okay. Ethan said nothing more and left quickly. Thud the moment he stepped out of the room, the door slammed shut without a shred of hesitation. Ethan instinctively turned to look behind him. The bedroom door was shut tight, closed without a moment's pause. This had never happened before. An indescribable feeling churned inside him, layer upon layer, leaving a sour taste in his mouth. In that moment, Ethan acutely realized that Catherine had changed, completely and utterly. That night, Catherine slept exceptionally well. Ethan, however, was restless after his meeting. He stayed in his office, the red glow of a cigarette flaring and dying between his fingers all night long. The next morning, Catherine finished packing and waited in her room. It was almost noon, but Ethan still hadn't returned. Catherine looked around the empty room and felt like a fool. She knew his words yesterday were likely just a whim. What was she even waiting for? Catherine decided not to wait any longer. She locked the door and pulled her repacked suitcase downstairs. Leo was playing a game in the living room. When he saw her coming down with her suitcase, he stood up, looking like he wanted to say something, but the words never came. He just grunted, lowered his head, and went back to his game, though his eyes kept darting her way. Catherine acted as if she hadn't seen him. Without a word to anyone, she dragged her suitcase and walked straight out of the villa. Bang, the front door was suddenly thrown open. Diana Payne, her hands stained with blood and her face pale, rushed in. She didn't even see who was in front of her as she screamed, "It's terrible, something's happened to Mr. Fairmont." Chapter 11. Car accident. Daddy. Leo burst through the hospital room door, wailing as he lunged forward. He was so small that his head slammed right into Ethan's lap. The impact made Ethan's brow furrow in pain, and he was about to snap when he caught sight of a slender figure entering the room behind his son. Ethan suppressed his anger and let out a low groan instead. Leo was startled. He looked up with red-rimmed eyes, his voice full of concern. "Daddy, are you okay?" Ethan pressed his lips into a thin line, raised his right hand to his forehead, and shook his head in pain. Just then, Catherine entered the room. Seeing the scene, her brow tightened slightly. Aside from a palm-sized bandage on his forehead, Ethan looked perfectly fine. It didn't look like he had been in a serious car accident. "Mr. Fairmont," Diana said politely, "your wife is here." With that, she shot Catherine a subtle glare and quickly exited the room. "You're here." Ethan propped himself up slowly, a pained smile on his face. "I promised we'd go out as a family today. I was up all night working, and I guess I wasn't paying attention while driving this morning and got into an accident. I have to break my promise again." Catherine's lips twitched. "It doesn't matter. I'm used to it." Over the years of their marriage, Ethan had made her countless promises when he was in a good mood, but he had never kept a single one. She had stopped caring a long time ago. Catherine Clark. Leo was incensed by her nonchalant reply. He puffed out his cheeks and glared at her. "Have you no humanity? Daddy was in a car accident. How can you be so calm? He's my father, your husband." Catherine's expression was placid, showing no emotion. "He's only your father." With that, she looked at Ethan. "Since Mr. Fairmont isn't up for a trip to the amusement park, you should rest and recover." She gave Ethan a slight nod and turned to leave. He couldn't believe it. Even with him injured, she was still so determined to go. A heavy feeling settled in Ethan's chest, tight and uncomfortable. Just as the door was about to close, he couldn't hold back any longer. "Catherine Clark." Her back remained turned to him as if she hadn't heard a thing. She didn't even pause. Ethan instinctively threw off the covers. Before he knew what he was doing, he was on his feet. The movement was so abrupt that it dislodged his IV needle. Blood immediately flowed back up the tube, turning the clear plastic crimson. Ethan ignored it and took a step to follow her, but he hadn't eaten much the day before and hadn't slept all night. The sudden movement made his vision go black. His legs gave out, and his tall frame swayed before collapsing to the floor with a thud. "Daddy, what's wrong?" Diana and the nurses waiting outside heard the noise and rushed into the room. Soon, a nurse's urgent voice called out, The patient fainted from a hypoglycemic attack. Get a doctor. Catherine, who had just reached the elevator, froze. Hypoglycemia. If the nurse hadn't mentioned it, she would have almost forgotten that Ethan had this condition. He had taken over the Fairmont Corporation at a very young age and had worked himself to the bone, often skipping 2 out of 3 meals a day. Over time, he had developed this problem, but in recent years, thanks to Catherine's attentive care and efforts to nurse him back to health, he hadn't had an episode in a long time. Ding, the elevator arrived. Just as Catherine was about to step in, she remembered something and turned, hurrying back to the room. Several nurses were crowded around the bed. Leo was standing beside them, his eyes red from crying. A doctor held up a syringe, tapped it twice, and was about to inject. Wait, Catherine had run all the way, and she was out of breath. She rushed forward, snatched the syringe from the doctor's hand, and threw it in the trash. In an instant, all eyes in the room were on her. After a few seconds of silence, Leo pointed at her and screamed, "Catherine Clark, what do you think you're doing if you delay Daddy's treatment? I'll skin you alive." Everyone was stunned. No one could believe that a child would speak to his own mother that way. Catherine, however, was the calmest person in the room. She placed a hand on her hip, took a few deep breaths, and lifted her chin, pointing to the syringe in the trash. "Ethan Fairmont is allergic to glucose. You can't inject that." The doctor was taken aback. How is that possible? He had never encountered a patient who was allergic to glucose before. The chances of having such an allergy were incredibly low, maybe 1 in 1,000. Seeing Ethan unconscious, Leo was both panicked and furious. He shoved Catherine aside. "Doctor, don't listen to her. She's a wicked woman, just trying to delay his treatment and kill my father." With that, Leo picked the syringe out of the trash. "Hurry up and inject my father." The doctor was not a child. He looked at the syringe in his hand and hesitated. Although a glucose allergy was rare, what if it was true? He wasn't willing to bet his career on it. "What are you waiting for?" Leo roared. "If you delay his treatment, I'll have the hospital fire you." Catherine stood by, the flush on her face not yet faded, her breathing still a bit heavy. When the doctor looked at her questioningly, she pursed her lips. "I've warned you. What you choose to do is your business." The doctor hesitated for a few seconds. "Let's draw his blood first to confirm his allergens." Seeing the medical staff about to leave, Leo grew even more frantic. "What about my father? Are you just going to leave him like this?" Diana chimed in. "Yes, doctor. Severe hypoglycemia can be fatal." As the doctor was caught in a dilemma, Catherine took a simply wrapped piece of candy from her bag. She handed it to the doctor. "Give him this." It was a candy Catherine had made herself. Because Ethan had hypoglycemia and was allergic to glucose, and because he was incredibly picky and disliked store-bought candies, calling them sickeningly sweet. Left with no choice, Catherine had started making her own refreshing fruit-flavored candies, keeping a stash in her bag and replacing them every few days. She hadn't needed them in years, but now, just as she was about to leave him, they came in handy. No, before the doctor could give it to Ethan, Leo screamed his refusal. "Who knows if there's something wrong with what she's giving you? My father can't eat that." Catherine shrugged, a dismissive sneer on her face. "Suit yourself." Seeing her indifference, Leo's face turned red with anger. He put his hands on his hips and glared at her. "There's no time to think about it," the doctor said, bypassing Leo. Without asking for his permission, he popped the candy into Ethan's mouth. Chapter 12. Scarlett Gardner, must you be so theatrical? Seeing that Ethan had taken the candy, Catherine turned to leave, but Leo blocked her path. "You're not going anywhere until my father wakes up." He spread his arms, his head held high in defiance, his big eyes glaring at Catherine. To look at him, you would think Catherine was his mortal enemy, not his mother. This was the child she had risked her life to give birth to. It was one thing for him not to love her. But in his mind, his own mother was a woman who would poison his father. In that moment, all the years of her devotion to him seemed like an absurd, laughable joke. Catherine glanced at her watch. It was still early. Since she had decided to cut ties and leave the city, she couldn't leave with such a ridiculous accusation hanging over her head. With that thought, Catherine pulled over a chair and sat down by the wall. "I'll leave after he wakes up." Leo shot her a resentful glare, but seeing that she had no intention of running, he finally sat down by the bed to wait. A few minutes later, Ethan finally woke up. "Daddy," Leo rushed forward, his eyes brimming with tears as he looked at him. "You're finally awake." A faint, sweet taste filled Ethan's senses, a flavor that wasn't cloying like store-bought candy, but had a clean, refreshing fruitiness to it. It was a taste he liked. His eyes shifted, and he saw Catherine resting by the wall with her eyes closed. A flicker of joy went through him, and a smile he didn't even realize he was making touched his lips. "Good, she hasn't left yet." Leo clung to Ethan's arm, resting his head on his shoulder and mumbling, "Daddy, just now someone said you were allergic to glucose and scared the doctor into not giving you the injection. Then she gave you something from some unknown little workshop to eat. I was so afraid she was trying to poison you." As he spoke, Leo looked up and glared at Catherine, even letting out a huff as if to say, "My daddy's awake now, you're in for it." A warmth spread through Ethan's chest. So she still remembered he was allergic to glucose. He hadn't had a hypoglycemic episode in years, so long that he had forgotten about it himself. Ethan looked over at Catherine's delicate face. She remembered every little detail, even what he was allergic to. How could someone like that possibly want to leave him? Everything that had happened before must have been her playing hard to get. With that thought, Ethan said softly, "Catherine Clark, just now, thank you." Catherine's brow furrowed. She snapped her eyes open, a hint of surprise in her dark gaze as she looked at him. She had thought he would question her motives, just like Leo did. She never expected to hear the words, "thank you," from his mouth. Their eyes met for a few seconds before Catherine looked away, got up, and adjusted her backpack. "You're welcome. Now that Mr. Fairmont is awake, my name is cleared. Goodbye." With that, she turned to leave. "Catherine Clark," Ethan spoke up. "Could I ask you for one more favor?" Since she wanted to play hard to get, he would play along. Seeing Catherine pause, Ethan continued, "The doctor prescribed some medication for me. Leo is just a child and doesn't know how to pick it up. Could I trouble you to get it for me?" Catherine turned her head and raised an eyebrow, her suspicious gaze falling on Diana Payne. Leo was a child and couldn't get the medicine, but was Diana dead? "Diana is my executive assistant. Many people in the city know her. If she's seen picking up my prescription, it might raise suspicions about my health and affect the family business." How laughable. Diana, a mere assistant, was known throughout the city. But she, Ethan Fairmont's wife, was recognized by almost no one. Fine, they were parting ways anyway. She could consider this one last favor for him. Catherine put down her luggage, picked up the prescription from the table, and left without a word to get the medicine. Seeing her still willing to listen to him and run errands, Ethan became even more certain that everything she had done before was just an act. His long, narrow eyes squinted, a playful glint in them. After Catherine left, Ethan instructed Leo, "Leo, when she comes back, you will apologize to her properly and ask her to come home with us." Leo grumbled. "Me? Apologize to her?" An icy glare fell on Leo, and Ethan's voice deepened. "She is your biological mother. You will only ever have one mother. Do you understand?" Leo had never heard Ethan speak in such a serious tone. He was both scared and intimidated. Despite his reluctance, he lowered his head and mumbled, "Okay." Once Leo apologized, he would also apologize to Catherine for his past actions. When she got what she wanted, she would surely drop this charade. Meanwhile, Catherine was unaware of Ethan's plans. After waiting in line on the first floor to pick up the medicine, she was on her way back when a figure blocked her path. Catherine was looking down, counting the medications, and instinctively sidestepped to the left. But when she moved left, the figure also moved left. She moved right, and the figure followed. After a few rounds of this, Catherine finally looked up. Scarlett Gardner's contorted face was right in front of hers. Her eyes were wide, one hand on her hip, the other pointing at Catherine's nose. "Catherine Clark, I thought you left. What are you still doing here?" Scarlett glanced down at the bag in Catherine's hand and clearly saw the name Ethan Fairmont on the prescription slip. The moment she heard about Ethan's accident, she had rushed over, hoping to use this opportunity to make a good impression on him. She never expected Catherine to beat her to it. Again, Scarlett's eyes widened even further. "Catherine Clark, have you no shame? You announce you're leaving the family, and now you're shamelessly clinging to him again. You're even more despicable than I thought. Give me the medicine." With that, Scarlett reached out to snatch the bag from Catherine's hand. Catherine sidestepped, easily dodging her. Scarlett, however, couldn't stop her momentum. She stumbled forward, tripped over her own feet, and fell flat on her face. Her nose was red from the fall. She turned and glared at Catherine. "Catherine Clark, how dare you? This is a public place, and you dare to lay a hand on me?" The words had barely left her mouth when Scarlett threw her hands in the air and started wailing. "Help, she's hitting me, everyone, come and see." The hospital was already crowded. Her scream immediately drew the curious gazes of passers-by. Scarlett's flair for the dramatic was in full force. She cried and screamed, "Assaulting someone in broad daylight, is there no law and order?" With one of them standing and the other on the ground, and Scarlett looking injured, the crowd quickly started pointing fingers at Catherine. Chapter 13. The one being cheated on is Ethan Fairmont. As the crowd grew, Scarlett became even more animated, her cries growing louder. Catherine, in contrast, remained expressionless, her dark eyes calm as she looked down at Scarlett. After a few seconds, Catherine suddenly spoke. "Scarlett Gardner, why are you doing this to me?" She didn't shout or wail like Scarlett. Only the tip of her nose and the corners of her eyes turned a faint red. Her beautiful eyes downcast, 2 crystal-clear tears rolled down her cheeks. Somehow, Catherine managed to make the tears linger on her face for several seconds before they finally fell. As the tears dropped, she swayed and stumbled, leaning against a middle-aged woman standing beside her. Catherine bit her lip, her tear-filled eyes fixed on Scarlett as she whispered, "You acted as the other woman, destroyed my family, and caused my husband to get into a car accident and be hospitalized. I came to get some medicine for him, and now you're framing me for hitting you. Oh, why is my life so miserable?" With that, Catherine turned her head and buried her face in the stranger's shoulder, sobbing pitifully. Her eyes were red, her expression heartbroken. She looked so fragile and pitiable, a stark contrast to Scarlett, who was still on the ground, looking for all the world like a common shrew. The crowd, which had been pointing fingers at Catherine just moments ago, instantly changed its tune. All eyes turned to Scarlett. The woman Catherine was leaning on was the first to speak. "Tusk, shameless. Exactly, she steals someone else's husband and then has the nerve to frame the wife. This young lady looks so gentle and weak, she doesn't look like she could hit anyone. But even if she did, you deserved it. Seducing another woman's husband, you deserve it even if she beat you to death." No matter what anyone said, Catherine just leaned on the woman's shoulder, her slender body racked with sobs, her tears quickly soaking the woman's clothes. Her pitiful appearance only garnered more sympathy. There, dear, don't cry," the woman said, comforting Catherine. When she turned to face Scarlett, her voice rose several octaves. "If you don't leave now, I'm calling the police." The crowd echoed her sentiment. Scarlett hadn't expected the tables to turn so quickly. The same people who had been on her side, condemning Catherine just moments ago, were now all condemning her, even threatening to call the police. These people were so quick to judge, unable to tell right from wrong. Scarlett wanted to argue, but seeing the crowd's angry faces, she didn't dare to speak. She scrambled to her feet, pointed a trembling finger at Catherine, and spat. "Fine, Catherine Clark, you just wait." Catherine's sobs grew louder. The crowd erupted in an even angrier roar. Someone even threw a water bottle at Scarlett, causing her to cover her head and flee in terror. After Scarlett ran off, the middle-aged woman comforted Catherine for a few more moments before telling the crowd to disperse. Once the crowd was gone, Catherine wiped her face, her tears gone. Her still reddened face was now completely calm. To deal with someone like Scarlett, you really had to fight fire with fire. If she was going to play the victim, Catherine had to be an even better one. Playing the damsel in distress, anyone could do that. Catherine took a deep breath to compose herself. Now all she had to do was give the medicine to Ethan, and her task would be complete. After that, whether he lived or died, prospered or failed, it would have nothing to do with her. The thought of her bright new life ahead made Catherine so happy that her steps felt lighter. She turned around, only to see a tall, slender figure standing not far from her. He was wearing a simple white t-shirt, a pair of plain jeans, and spotlessly clean white shoes. He stood in the sunlight, a faint smile on his lips, his eyes curved in amusement as he watched her. Their eyes met, and Catherine instinctively wanted to look away, but the man spoke first. "Catherine Clark, long time no see." It was the same voice she remembered, deep and warm. Catherine pressed her lips into a thin line, forcing a smile. "Alistair, long time no see." The sunlight enveloped Alistair Vance, like a spotlight following him as he walked toward her. He stopped in front of her, nodding slightly as he looked down at her. "I thought I recognized your voice just now. I didn't expect it to really be you." So he had been there during Scarlett's whole performance. Did that mean he had seen everything? Catherine felt a flush of embarrassment, her face turning bright red. She lowered her head, glancing at Alistair out of the corner of her eye, and mumbled, You saw all that." Alistair neither confirmed nor denied it, replying cryptically, "To deal with people like that, you really do have to use their own methods against them." He thought the same way she did. Catherine's embarrassment lessened slightly. She pursed her lips, a small smile forming. "Alistair, I thought you had left the city to pursue your career elsewhere. What are you doing here?" The afternoon sun shone on Catherine's face, making her already fair skin look like silk. Alistair was momentarily captivated, his smile deepening. If it weren't for her, why else would he be here? Alistair answered casually, "A friend of mine is in the hospital. I came to visit. It's been so long. Do you have some time now?" Catherine wanted to refuse, but when she met Alistair's sincere gaze, the words wouldn't come out. After all, if it hadn't been for her, Alistair would never have left the city back then. Now she was about to leave. Who knew when they would see each other again? Catherine glanced at the time on her phone. It was still early. They could talk for a bit. With that thought, she nodded. "I have time." Alistair stepped aside to let her pass. "There's a coffee shop outside the hospital. They have your favorite caramel macchiato and the garlic bread you like." Catherine froze. After all these years, he still knew her favorite so well. Noticing the change in her expression, Alistair smiled and explained, "Among all our old classmates, your tastes were the most unique. It's hard to forget." Catherine's lips curved into a faint smile, but she didn't say anything. They walked out of the hospital together, one in front of the other. From a corner of the lobby, Scarlett turned off her phone's camera, a cold, mocking look on her face as she watched Catherine's retreating back. If Catherine dared to humiliate her like that in public, she shouldn't blame her for showing Ethan what a cheap tramp she really was. She wasn't even divorced yet, and she was already shamelessly flirting with other men. No man could tolerate being cheated on, especially not when the man being cheated on was Ethan Fairmont. Chapter 14. To be fair, one slap each in the coffee shop outside the hospital. Just as he had always been, Alistair had a knack for finding quiet corners even in the busiest of places. He ordered Catherine's favorite coffee and pastry, placing the cup in front of her with a neatly folded napkin underneath. "The coffee is freshly brewed, it's a bit hot," he warned gently. Catherine's face flushed slightly as she reached for the cup. It was indeed scalding. The moment her fingers touched the rim, they turned red. She let out a small cry of pain and snatched her hand back. Alistair put down his own cup and took her hand, moving to sit beside her. He held her fingers and blew on them gently. "I told you it was hot. Why are you still so careless?" Alistair was so close that his lips almost touched her fingertips. The warm breath spread from her fingers, creating an intimate warmth. The posture and the distance were far too ambiguous. Catherine's face turned crimson. She instinctively tried to pull her hand away, but Alistair didn't let go. Instead, he drew her closer. "Let me see, is it a bad burn?" "Ethan, look." Scarlett stood triumphantly by their table, her finger practically in Alistair's face. She turned to Ethan, her chin held high, her face glowing with smug satisfaction. "See? I wasn't lying. Not only did she humiliate me in front of all those people, but she's also all over another man in public, with no regard for her status as a married woman." Ethan's face was already pale from his hypoglycemic episode. Now, with the suppressed rage in his eyes, it looked even more terrifying. "Catherine Clark, do you have any idea who you are?" It was always like this. He believed whatever Scarlett said, never once questioning her. Catherine was tired of it. This time, she didn't bother to explain. Her face was a cold mask as she pushed the bag of medicine forward. "You're just in time. Here's your medicine. Take it." She was so calm in the face of his accusation. And even as she spoke, her hand was still held by that other man, without the slightest hint of resistance. Something blocked Ethan's chest, threatening to explode. Scarlett added fuel to the fire. "Catherine Clark, you are so shameless. You're still Ethan's wife, yet you're being so intimate with another man right in front of him. Aren't you just cheating on him?" The other customers in the coffee shop heard the word cheating and all turned to look. The four of them instantly became the center of attention. Being publicly shamed like this, Ethan's face grew even darker. He pressed his tongue against the inside of his cheek, fighting to control his anger. He grabbed the bag of medicine and gritted his teeth. "Come back with me." Before he could touch Catherine, Alistair caught his wrist. "Sir, whether she leaves or not is her decision." Alistair stood up and slowly pushed Ethan's hand away, his dark eyes meeting Ethan's grim gaze. The face looked familiar. Ethan thought for a moment and finally remembered. Catherine had a treasured book, a collection of works by famous artists. One of the artists was named Alistair Vance, and there was a page dedicated to his work. A photo of Catherine with another man was tucked into that very page. The man in the photo was the man standing before him now. A muscle in Ethan's temple twitched. He suppressed his rage and asked in a low voice, "Who are you?" Alistair handed him a business card. "Alistair Vance, Catherine's senior from university." It really was him. Looking at the black text on the gold-trimmed card, the fire in Ethan's chest blazed hotter. No wonder he had seen Catherine studying Alistair's artwork in that book so many times. So they were old acquaintances. All these years she had been married to him, Ethan had thought her devotion was genuine, which was why she had worked so tirelessly for their family. It turned out that, behind his back, she had been emotionally cheating on him all along. The thought of Catherine looking at that photo every time she opened the book filled Ethan with a mix of emotions, and his fingers trembled with rage. After a long moment, he let out a cold laugh. "No wonder." Alistair was confused. "I'm sorry, sir. What did you say?" Ethan lifted his gaze, his dark eyes lingering on Alistair's face for a few seconds before slowly turning to Catherine. "No wonder you were so insistent on a divorce. It's because he came back." Catherine was shocked and shot to her feet. "Ethan Fairmont, what are you talking about?" The more anxious she seemed, the more certain Ethan was that he was right. He had been willing to give her a way out of this drama, but it turned out she had already lined up her next prospect and was even willing to sacrifice her family for him. His anger swirled in his chest, fanned by an invisible wind. His lips pressed into a thin line and his eyes grew colder. After a moment, Ethan said coldly, "Catherine Clark, I underestimated you. You're a divorced woman with a child. Do you really think your dream lover will still want you?" A crisp slap landed on Ethan's face. All sound in the cafe instantly vanished. Time ticked by. After what felt like an eternity, Scarlett's panicked voice broke the silence. "Catherine Clark, are you insane?" She reached out to push her, but Catherine caught her hand and with a swift motion, slapped her too. Scarlett and Ethan stood side by side, one with a red left cheek, the other with a swollen right one. The handprints on their faces were identical in size. Catherine looked at Ethan, her expression impassive. "Ethan Fairmont, do you think I'm like you? Married, yet still fooling around with some tramp on the side?" She sneered, her gaze flicking to Scarlett. "Or do you think I'm like her? Knowingly pursuing a married man, content to be the other woman, hoping day and night for a promotion?" "I'm sorry, but only people like you are capable of such disgusting, despicable things. I am not. I've done everything I needed to do. From now on, you're on your own." With that, she pushed past them and under the watchful eyes of everyone in the cafe, walked straight to the counter. "Everyone, the coffee is on me today. Consider it a thank you for witnessing my escape from misery." Thud, the cafe door opened and closed. Through the bright window, Ethan watched Catherine's tall, straight back disappear from his sight. Something inside him was being pulled away, and all the strength drained from his body. Alistair gathered his things from the table. "Mr. Fairmont, Catherine was married to you for many years. Now she's finally free." With that, he also left. Free? When had he ever restricted her? Did being married to him mean she had to lose her freedom? "Ethan, say something." Scarlett clutched her face, stomping her foot. "Are you just going to let that pair of sluts walk away?" Chapter 15. After leaving this place, who cares anyway? Ethan didn't answer. He didn't even spare Scarlett a glance. Alistair's words echoed in his ears. For the first time, Ethan began to question himself. Had he not given Catherine enough, or was she just too insatiable? She had gotten what she wanted, yet she still yearned for freedom. Seeing Ethan walk out without a word, as if he hadn't heard her, Scarlett screamed in frustration. "Ethan, say something. You destroy someone else's family and still have the nerve to shout? How shameless." Exactly. The wife handled that with class. If it were me, I would have scratched her face to pieces. Someone looking for trouble threw their coffee at Scarlett, pointing at her nose and yelling, "Get lost, you're not welcome here." Scarlett's face was beet red, her clothes soaked with coffee, and her wet hair stuck to her face. She was a complete mess. She had run to tell Ethan that Catherine was having a secret rendezvous with another man in the coffee shop, but this was not the outcome she had wanted. Furious and humiliated, Scarlett pushed past the person who had thrown the coffee and ran out, crying. Even from a distance, she could still hear the crowd's jeers and insults. Ethan's legs felt like jelly. He didn't say a word on the way back to the hospital. He walked into his room and collapsed onto the bed. Leah rushed to his side. When he saw the red handprint on Ethan's face, he gasped. "That woman Catherine Clark is so shameless, she cheated on you with another man, and then she let her lover hit you." Leo assumed that the mark on Ethan's face was from Catherine's lover, and started shouting about getting revenge for his father. Enough! Ethan's vision was blurry and his ears were ringing. He was at his wit's end. He suddenly sat up, his dark eyes fixed on Leo. "Who taught you to say those things?" Leo was taken aback and mumbled, "I'm not wrong." "I asked you, who taught you those words?" Ethan's voice dropped several octaves, making Leo tremble. He instinctively glanced at Diana Payne. Ever since Scarlett had produced the evidence of Catherine's infidelity and rushed off with Ethan, Diana had been repeating those phrases to Leo. Adulterer and adulteress, shameless tramp. Ethan's gaze was so sharp it felt like a physical blow. Diana didn't even dare to lift her head. She bowed and explained, "Mr. Fairmont, that's not what I meant." Crash! Ethan didn't let her finish. He grabbed the ashtray beside him and hurled it. It shattered on the floor. The sound silenced everyone. Diana in the room, Scarlett who had just arrived at the door, and even Leo on the bed all stood frozen in fear. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. After a moment, Ethan finally spoke. "Diana Payne, I don't want to see you again." It took Diana a few seconds to process his words. She looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief. Mr. Fairmont, what do you mean by that?" If she understood correctly, was he firing her? She was his chief executive assistant, Mr. Fairmont. Get out. Ethan's voice suddenly rose to a roar, the frustration he had been bottling up in the coffee shop finally exploding. Diana was so shocked she couldn't speak. She didn't dare to argue. In the end, she simply bowed her thanks to him and left. The room fell into a deathly silence. Catherine was completely unaware of Ethan's outburst. She also never imagined that she would one day be able to slap Ethan Fairmont in public. In the past, that was something she wouldn't have even dared to dream of. Today, not only had she done it, but it had also felt incredibly satisfying. Although her hands were still tingling, she felt a sense of release. All the years of pent-up frustration had been channeled into those two slaps. She felt so much lighter, her steps almost buoyant. Outside the hospital, Catherine was about to hail a cab when a black SUV pulled up right in front of her. The window rolled down, revealing Alistair's gentle smile. "Get in, I'll take you to the airport." How did he know she was going to the airport? Before Catherine could ask, the back window rolled down. Stella Sterling took off her sunglasses and grinned at her. "Catherine Clark, you've got guts. You even dared to hit Ethan Fairmont." So it was Stella. No wonder Alistair had shown up at the hospital so conveniently. She must have called him. As soon as Catherine got in the car, Stella pointed at Alistair. "Ethan Fairmont thought he could pressure me by calling my family. He clearly doesn't know how capable our dear senior is now." With that, Stella playfully slapped Alistair on the shoulder and joked, "Alistair, Catherine is getting a divorce. You've got another chance now." Catherine grabbed Stella's wrist and pulled her close, whispering, "What are you talking about?" She glanced apologetically at Alistair. "Alistair, Stella's just kidding. Don't take her seriously." Stella winked and was about to say more, but Catherine gave her a sharp pinch on the back of her hand, silencing her with a look. Stella pouted and grumbled, "Was I wrong? You and Alistair were the golden couple of our university. If you hadn't married Ethan Fairmont, you two might have kids by now." Catherine wanted to cover Stella's mouth, but thought it would look too suspicious. She was left feeling incredibly awkward. Alistair, however, just laughed heartily. "Stella, you're such a good matchmaker. How come you haven't managed to marry yourself off after all these years?" Stella was at a loss for words. She puffed out her cheeks and fell silent. "I know," Alistair teased. "Next time I see that guy, I'll be sure to tell him you're still." Okay, Stella quickly waved her hands, cutting him off. Alistair, let's skip this topic. She leaned her head on Catherine's shoulder, naturally changing the subject. I knew it was a bad sign when my family suddenly called me back to the estate. It had to be that bastard Ethan Fairmont trying to pressure me through them. So, before I went back, I called Alistair. Luckily, he's been in the city recently and could come so quickly. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to find someone to help you out on such short notice. Catherine didn't know whether to thank Stella or scold her for meddling. Alistair's appearance had certainly sped up her breakup with Ethan, but it had also branded her as a promiscuous woman. Oh well, it didn't matter. After leaving this place, who cares anyway? Chapter 16. A silent journey. The rest of the journey was silent. Soon, they arrived at the airport. The sky, which had been clear and sunny just moments ago, was now overcast and heavy, the air thick and humid. While Alistair was handling Catherine's check-in, Stella pulled her aside. She hugged Catherine tightly, burying her face in her shoulder. Kate, we just made up and now you're leaving again. I'm really going to miss you. For so many years, they had lived in the same city, but because of Ethan, they hadn't seen each other. Now that they had finally reconciled, Catherine was leaving. The more Stella thought about it, the sadder she became. Her lip quivered and tears threatened to fall. Catherine quickly comforted her. I'm just going to Seacrest for a few years. It's not like I'm never coming back. Her words only made Stella more upset. Through her tears, she mumbled, If you have any trouble over there, call me anytime. If things get too tough, just come back. Even without Ethan Fairmont, I can still support you here in the city. Catherine hadn't been feeling particularly emotional, but Stella's words brought tears to her eyes. All these years, she had devoted herself to Ethan and Leo, distancing herself from old friends and sacrificing her true self. And for what? If she could choose again, she would never push Stella away for those two. With that thought, Catherine hugged Stella back tightly. The two women held each other, their tears soaking each other's clothes. Alistair returned after finishing the check-in and saw them. He approached and said softly, Everything's taken care of. You can board now. Stella, don't worry. I'll take good care of Catherine. Catherine sprang back as if she'd been shocked, her red-rimmed eyes wide with disbelief as she looked at Alistair. Alistair, what did you say? The gentle curve of Alistair's lips remained unchanged. Catherine, I've been running a gallery in Seacrest for the past few years, and it's doing well. When we get there, I can take care of you. Catherine looked at Stella in astonishment. No wonder Stella had given her Alistair's business card when she found out she was going to Seacrest. At the time, Catherine had only seen his name on the card and hadn't paid attention to the gallery's address. She never imagined his gallery was in Seacrest. If she had known, she wouldn't have chosen to go there. Catherine stared at her plane ticket with a mournful expression. Is it too late to change my flight? Just then, the airport announcement came over the speakers. Passengers for flight T3060, please proceed to boarding gate number 3. Your flight will be departing in 30 minutes.